Good morning, everyone. For teleSUR, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We once again begin in Colombia, where the country's rebels and the government have reached an agreement for the release of a general in FARC custody. The Colombian government and the leftist FARC rebels have agreed to unspecified conditions under which the rebels will release General Rubén Darío Alzate and 4 others. The Colombian government had suspended peace talks with the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia until Alzate was freed. The standoff has halted the peace talks, which marked their 2nd anniversary on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Latin America's longest-running war, which has killed some 200,000 people over 50 years, continues. Despite the announcement that General Rubén Darío Alzate will soon be released, the Colombian army continues its massive search for him. Some 1,500 troops, 10 helicopters and planes, as well as boats and land vehicles have been deployed in the jungle-covered region of Choco to search for Alzate. Alzate is the highest-ranking military officer to be captured by the FARC in 5 decades of conflict. President Juan Manuel Santos says the suspension of peace talks will be lifted and assures his government is committed to the negotiations.
We want to carry on with negotiations to end this absurd conflict, this war which has bled all the Colombians.
And we go now to Mexico, where tens of thousands of protesters are expected to pour into the streets of Mexico City this Thursday to demand justice in the case of 43 missing Ayotzinapa students. 3 caravans departed from Guerrero State a few days ago and are scheduled to arrive to the capital's main square in front of the presidential palace. 3 marches are also planned in different locations in the capital. Massive protests throughout the country began after gangs, in cooperation with police, killed 3 students and abducted 43 others in late September. Now, authorities have failed to locate the missing students. President Enrique Peña Nieto has hardened his position against protesters, warning that police force will be used if demonstrations turn violent. The case of the Ayotzinapa students has sparked international condemnation and protests, not just in Mexico, but really around the world. Governments from various countries have urged the Mexican authorities to step up their efforts to find the students. Protests in solidarity with the Mexican students have been staged internationally. Today, more than 200 rallies will be held in America, Europe, and Asia, among other regions. Protests in at least 30 U.S. cities are planned for today, as well as locations in Canada and throughout Central and South America. And we stay in Mexico. In a highly unusual move, Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto has publicly disclosed his personal assets. He hopes the move will quiet down criticism sparked by his wife's intention to buy a $7 million mansion. Peña Nieto revealed he owns 9 properties. Also, his total personal assets total $3.6 million. Only 2 other presidents in Mexican history have publicly revealed their assets. His wife, actress Angelica Rivera, announced Tuesday that she will no longer buy the house. The mansion is owned by a company that had been awarded a multi-billion-dollar rail contract by the government. Critics suggested Peña Nieto may have been receiving the house as a bribe. Moving on, Russian President Vladimir Putin has lashed out at the United States for the 2nd day in a row by warning Washington not to interfere in the country's internal affairs. Putin's statements come after he received the credentials of the new U.S. ambassador to Moscow, John Teft. Teft previously served as diplomatic head in Georgia. The Russian leader outlined basic terms for better ties with Washington. On Tuesday, Putin said the U.S. was attempting to subdue Russia, but asserted it would never achieve that goal. Tensions between both nations have increased due to the Ukraine crisis and NATO's growing presence near Russian borders. Israeli soldiers have protected a group of Israeli settlers who attacked Palestinians with rocks and iron bars during a confrontation in the West Bank. That's according to a Palestinian human rights group. The Israeli settlers' attack on Palestinians took place after a deadly attack on a synagogue in Jerusalem that killed 5 Israelis. Meanwhile, Israel has approved the construction of 78 new settlements in East Jerusalem. There are over 500,000 Israeli settlers living in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem in violation of international law. Israel also accused Hamas of launching 4 test rockets into the sea. Syrian government airstrikes have escalated since the U.S.-led coalition started attacking Islamic State group positions inside Syria in September. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reports that over the past month, nearly 1,600 strikes have been launched, killing nearly 400 civilians. It says that more than 1,500 have been wounded in the attacks. Analysts say that the increase in strikes nationwide could be aimed at weakening pro-Western rebel groups before they are trained and equipped by the U.S. to fight against extremists. The United Nations Security Council began a high-level meeting on Wednesday to discuss efficient ways to coordinate efforts to fight violent extremism around the world. The UN body reiterated its pledge to counter the global terrorist threat posed by the Islamic State group. The group has violently taken control of large regions in Iraq and Syria. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon opened the meeting with a call for tackling the root causes of extremism. He says inequality, the lack of opportunities, and the need for inclusion are fueling terrorism and violent organized crime groups. Member states agreed on the need to curtail the recruitment and travel of foreign terrorist fighters and to disrupt terrorist organizations' funding sources.
By their governments and
And we end today with a look at sports. Venezuelan athletes dominated the main swimming competitions Wednesday in Veracruz, Mexico, where the 22nd edition of the Central American Games are being held. Due to the impressive performance of the Venezuelan swim team, the country moved up to 3rd place at the event. Mexico continues to dominate overall and has held on to the 1st place since the event kicked off. Mexico has accumulated 42 gold medals, 32 silver, and 28 bronze. That's an overall total of 112 medals. Cuba remains in 2nd place with 29 gold, 20 silver, and 20 bronze. Venezuela is in 3rd place with 24 gold, 24 silver, and 31 bronze. That's a total of 79. And Colombia is in 4th place with 22 gold, 29 silver, 28 bronze, and a total of 79 medals. Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For teleSUR English, I'm Cody Weddle. Have a great day.